if we were a participant in the program, we would not be able to proceed forward with a tax sale. So there's questions in terms of if we can do that legally by code.
How long do you have to be delinquent on your taxes before you go to a tax sale? Can you remind me how long that takes?
Every year, we have a tax sale, so if your taxes are not due and paid up by the March payment, you will start the process. So we'll issue delinquent notices on May 1st. And we go to tax sale on the third Monday of June. If they're not paid up before then they go to tax sale.
So do we know how long this sort of resets their clock, for lack of a better term? In other words, the payments made through ARPA funding for this directly to Woodbury County, and does that buy the homeowner like one more year to where it can go to tax sale? Let's say that the federal government makes this payment for them, and then they still don't pay anything. The homeowner still doesn't pay anything for a length of time. Do we know how long that is that they have their? Does that question make sense?
Yep, it does. It makes perfect sense. And it's not an easy answer, other than the goal of the Iowa Finance Authority is that this will set everybody back on pace. So it's to kind of get them caught up with having any kind of delinquent, any delinquent payments that is associated to their home ownership. And the goal is that they would then be in the position to make all their future payments, okay? There's no real penalty that I understand that if the state were to fund it and get that homeowner up to date on all of their payments, if they then fail to make the future payments and go into a tax sale situation, that there would still be no recourse on the money that they received. The real catch is going to be their enrollment process with the state, which we will not be part of. We would just direct a homeowner to the state to go through that process, and it will be up to the state to actually kind of do that vetting process to make sure that the party that will be receiving these funds will be set on the path that identified in the goals that they've set up for the program.
Do you have any estimation of how back collectively Woodbury County residents are on back taxes? Is that, I know I'm just throwing that out of the blue, so I don't expect you to have.
Yeah, I did not run the report on all the tax sale certificates. So anybody who, because of COVID, we did not have a tax sale in 2020. So 2021 we had one, and that would go back to basically 19. So people could have been delinquent. And to go forward with the tax sale process, when taxes are picked up by an investor, they have 1 year and 9 months before the investor can pursue the deed. They would have to give the 90-day notice and issue, very similar to what we do tax certificate. So there are going to be some people who went to tax sale in 2021. We're going to be coming up this spring. We're going to be coming up to investors asking for 90-day notices. The state has indicated that if somebody gets enrolled in the program, that they're about a 45 to a 60-day time period to be able to issue the funds.
And are you looking for this board to grant authority to do this, or is this something you're already doing essentially?
This is something that because the checks will be written out to the county treasurer has to sign the agreement. This is an informational situation for the board so that you all understand that this program is available. It's very new. The state is going to start marketing it. They've asked the counties, all individual counties, to help them with some of that marketing. Maybe through the delinquent notice process. Today, all the delinquent notices went out, and just so you know, we had like 3,300 delinquent notices.
Wow.
And that's actually common. We send the delinquent notices out November 1st and May 1st, and 3,300 to 3,500 is normal.
I can't remember how many parcels we have. Isn't that like close to 5%?
We have 56,000 parcels.
Wow.
Yep. So it'll be busy in the office come next week with the delinquent notices being issued. When we go to tax sale, and I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, sorry Supervisor Taylor, but when we go to tax sale, we usually have about 1,000 properties that go to tax sale every year. And that's pretty standard. About 800 of those get picked up by investors. The other 200 or so are either parcels that aren't deemed worth it. They're usually the alleyways that have somehow or another get transferred to ownership and got dropped off somewhere. A lot of times they're mobile homes. Again, aren't something that really is interested, investors aren't interested in those types of properties. So
we are moving forward with this as far as your signing of the agreement, or is there anything to be signed? It's just,
we have not signed right now. In some correspondence with Joshua, we are concerned about the clause that says we can't move forward with a tax sale, and if that, from a statute, from a code perspective, it really is kind of, what we're reading right now is that we would be doing something that we're not allowed to do per the code. So there's a lot of conversations in the treasurer's group, because we do believe that it is something that is worthwhile and valuable to our community and to some of those in our community that are struggling, particularly those after 2020. What we are going to do in the treasurer's office is we're reviewing all of our delinquent notices and trying to identify those who would actually meet that the January 2020 cutoff. Anybody before that wouldn't qualify for the program. And we have people with suspended taxes that have had suspended taxes prior to that date. There are some parties who have previous tax sales out there, so they may have multiple tax sales on the books, and they may not qualify either. Anybody else past that date, even if we can't participate because of the I guess the exclusion of being able to move forward with a tax sale, does not mean that a homeowner can't participate on some relief on in some other avenue. And maybe if they can get a relief with their with their mortgage payments, it would help them be able to make their property tax payments themselves. Some of the other conversations, is there another way around it? Can the state issue a joint check to the treasurer and the homeowner so that we don't have to sign a participation agreement? Because the state's concern is to make sure that those funds make it to what they're supposed to be used for. So this is really just kind of the highlight to inform the board, to let them know that we're talking with the county attorney's office, because we value their advice on some of these things, because we don't want to enter into an agreement that would put the county at risk. And then again, I'm sure there's going to be other community members who are going to start hearing about it and may have questions to the board, and how they can participate. So it was really just information.
Well, thanks for that. Any other questions for her? Thank you, Tina.
Okay, thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too. All right, item 12 from the sheriff, Chad Sheehan, information on the purchase of 2 bullet-resistant vests, 4 safety restraint wraps, and a training dummy.
Well, good afternoon or early evening. This is, I'd reached out to Dennis last week and after speaking with Dennis, wanted to bring this information item forward to the board, and I'll let Dennis kind of jump in wherever I might need help here, Dennis. But it was after COVID and garnishments opened back up, our office was inundated with garnishments. I think we had for all of our civil services for the year, we had budgeted $65,000 in revenue. And last week on October 24th, when Jennifer ran the numbers for me, we were at $106,120 in civil fees. And the lion's share of those came from the garnishments. So we're 41,000 over. Many of those came early in July and August. We expect that they're going to go back to normal numbers. Jennifer reached out to them. I think it was on maybe Friday. It was after I had done the agenda item. So we're not going to continue to see that spike in numbers. So unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, for the sake of the people who may be receiving the garnishments, it's not like we're going to have $150,000 in extra revenue at the end of the year, but we're already 41,000 over. So a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to assist one of our transport officers on a mental committal with an unruly, combative person. And in the process of assisting, at some point, one of the correctional officers who we had brought out to assist us so that we could make sure that we didn't injure the person or get any of our people or anybody from the police department injured. One of them asked if any of us had this RAP device that you see in your background information. And there aren't any. We have them in the jail, but we don't have any of them in any of the transport vehicles, who are the people who do most of our mental committals. And so the recommendation was that we would purchase these RAPs, 4 of them, put 1 of them in each of the transport vehicles. And then also, coming out of COVID, our electronic monitoring officers, there are 2, are going to start doing home visits again and following up with people that are on electronic monitoring. And they have also been assisting with these mental committals because they just continue to, the numbers just continue to skyrocket. And those electronic monitoring officers don't have any ballistic vests that they wear. It's just not safe for them to be out there. They are carrying firearms. They're dealing with a lot of emotionally disturbed people. And doing these home visits, we felt that would be an unnecessary risk to them and their families to not have them protected. And then a training dummy was recommended so that we could utilize that training dummy for practicing with the RAPs and other defensive tactics and things that we would use on a regular basis. So when I contacted Dennis about using my hope was that we would be able to use some of that 41,000 in extra revenue, but that goes back into general basic or general sup or one or the other. And so really, at this point in the budget year, I don't know if the 9,000, and let me, one other correction. I had them recontact the RAP company and renegotiate a price because I didn't think the shipping costs were fair. So they actually lowered the price $420. So the total now is $9,392. That also changed after I had already done the agenda item. So at this point, we did not have any of these items budgeted for. So after talking with Dennis said the appropriate thing probably to do, you have the money, you could spend it, but the other items that we had budgeted for may take us over the line item at the end of the year, by the end of the year. And so to let you all know that we're gonna make these purchases for these unbudgeted items, hoping that we don't go over, but that if we do, I could come back at some point in, is it around May, Dennis? Yeah. And look at using some of that 41,000 to cover that overage. And then that way you guys were aware of it ahead of time. It wasn't like we were coming in at the end and surprising anybody with any of the expenditure.
I mean, really, we're making budget amendments here 2 ways, right? We're a budget amendment for more revenue, budget amendment for more spending.
Anytime they do a budget amendment, we always ask where are the funds coming from? Cash reserves, additional funds such as Chad has, or reserves that were not used last year, potentially be used this year. And I am keeping a list of all the officers that do request them, what date the board's pre-approved them basically, if they do need a budget amendment. But Chad won't know till probably April. Then he and his office staff go through his budgets, and if there's money there, fine. If there isn't, then he'll come back. At least he knows the money can be available.
I mean, so just to understand process here, I mean, essentially these are going to be bought. You'll have them on the claims. We'd approve them as claims.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So I guess if anybody disapproves of them, maybe before they're bought, would be the time to bring that up. And
True, but
I mean,
he's ready to buy them, so basically just saying the consensus, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I don't have any objections to it, and I don't know. Yeah, okay. So,
I think for Dennis, it was more, he was just recommending just to avoid any pitfalls down the road where.
Yeah, where it ends up on the claims and
Well,
we
hey, wait a
deny it.
second, why are we over here by $9,000? So that if that were to happen, it wasn't a surprise at the end of the year. We address it now, and hopefully, I'm confident that by the end of the year, I mean, we've got 41,000 in cushion right now as it stands. This doesn't push us anywhere near that, although I know for accounting purposes, it's not like your own, it's not like a private business accounting system, I understand, but
Did you buy the dummy yet?
no.
December 31st. I'm available every Tuesday afternoon at 4:30.
I don't think you want any part of that
No?
practice.
All right. No, just throwing it out there.
And to make it clear too, every department needs to code the claims to the right line item, even if they go over, because the bottom line is total budget of that department activity. As long as they don't go over that, they're fine. But you can go over in a line item because you may have other line items in that department activity covering it. So that's what he'll review further down the road.
I think as far as information, not just for the board, but for the public as well, I think this is, a good way to do this, so I appreciate that.
Yep, absolutely. So any questions about any of it at all, or anything else that's going on in the sheriff's office? It's been a few months since I've been up here.
I guess I wouldn't mind asking about, as far as staffing goes out there, as far as getting people for the new
Yeah.
jail facility, I'm
Sure.
curious on that.
So we've already been actively looking at our budget for fiscal year '24. You all were gracious enough to give us the staffing that I think is going to be necessary to open the new jail. As you are aware, the timeline of opening the jail has been pushed back a few months, unrelated to the precast falling. We're looking now at September. So over the last week, we have been looking at adjusting when we're going to hire staff. We won't need as many staff hired as early as what we had initially anticipated. I don't have the final numbers, but we're looking at being able to save probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40, maybe as much as $50,000 by delaying the hiring of staff. Unfortunately, it's not going to affect fiscal year 24's amount, because fiscal year that's not true. It could affect it, but it'll be minor compared to the overall increase for the staff. So the plan was originally, Dennis and I had talked about this, and we went back and reviewed the board meeting from that evening. We were looking at January 1 hiring 3, February 1 hiring 3. I think I have some of the numbers here. And then 6 weeks later, hiring 3 more, 6 weeks later, or a month later, then hiring 3. We were trying to stagger it so that we could save money. We could also have the appropriate number of field training officers to get everybody trained. So now what we're looking at doing is on those same initial 4 months, we'll hire 2, 2, 2, and 2. What we're also looking at doing, and I got to talk to Melissa. We haven't figured all this out. You had authorized us to have a new lieutenant and sergeant position for June 1st. We're looking at making those promotions January 1st, which will be an increase in cost for those positions. But even factoring that increase, the overall savings is still going to be somewhere around that $40,000. So we'll be able to do that, but because we're backing off the number of people that we have to hire, we'll still be way under what is already budgeted. And then it won't affect the FY24 number. That number will still the same, minus any pay increases that have occurred during the budget process and whatever else. So, our biggest hurdle is going to be hiring people. That is, so, to the public, to the media, there's media here. If you know anybody that is interested in getting into the corrections field, if you know anybody that's looking at getting into, they're looking at you, Justin. If you know anybody that's looking at getting into law enforcement, criminal justice, you know, if you're an able-bodied person who can pass the background check, if you apply. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's not an easy environment to work in, but it is rewarding. And the people that come and work in our jail, I mean, it takes a special person. We're always looking for the right people. But if you know anybody, you know, you guys did a great job bumping up their pay a little bit. It's certainly gonna make us a little more competitive. But you know, if you know anybody, that's gonna be our biggest hurdle. Go ahead, Jeremy. I don't wanna
Yeah,
cut it
so
off.
I don't envy the job that you have ahead of you and appreciate the job that you're doing. Are we gonna have to have a time where it's an overlap where we're almost running two jails? I mean, obviously you can't like one day
No,
move
we're-
200 and some
No,
people.
we're gonna move, so without getting into too
Yeah.
specific of details, just for safety purposes, but, no, the plan is that it will be a lights off, lights on in a matter of hours.
Okay.
I say that as far as the inmates, there will be probably, and we really aren't sure exactly, I'm estimating a 4 to 6 week training window. And during that time, we've kind of brainstormed some outside the box ideas on how to train some of our staff. Some of the things we were looking at doing was, if the public wants to, you know, if we have certain members of the board or city council or other things like that might want a tour, what we might do is have them go through a booking process. It's the best way for them to see the whole thing. It'll allow our people to practice it. And so we're looking at maybe doing those things, and we're thinking that that's probably gonna be somewhere around a 4 to 6 week window. But you know, we won't be having inmates in 2 different locations. Our plan is, so for one day, we're probably gonna have to double our staff for a day, but we'll be moving people, and we're working out the logistics, and we've been working on that because we know it's gonna come here really quick. We have also, over the last month or so, been going through the change of our records management system, which is a very tasking, you know, cops don't like change. Nobody likes change, but cops really don't like change. And so, you know, so we're just throwing all this stuff at these guys, and they're responding. But you know, we'll get through it one way or another. We'll get through it. But yeah, no, we plan on making that change probably within an 8-hour time period. It's going to go from here to there, and that's it. It's shut the lights off. Which
Thank you.
Kenny probably can't wait for that day. And just so you know, still actively working with the feds. Just sent another email today to the U.S. Marshals, still continuing those lines of communication that have been going on for 3 or 4 years, and hoping to get something before we open so that we have a better idea for budgeting process. I mean, I'm hoping to get something in the works so we have an idea by January, so that as we start really getting to the meat and potatoes of fiscal year 24, we have at least some idea of which direction we're heading, whether it's with the marshals or with ICE or whoever it might be. But I think that's looking promising. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I'm thinking it's going to be a positive partnership.
So something else I was asked the other day was how many federal prisoners do we currently have? And I said, if I were to guess, probably 0.
Yeah,
So,
yes, and some of that, you know, the history has been with the Marshal Service. So when I came on with the Marshal Service, for them, when they have to move prisoners around, it's expensive, it's a pain in the rear end. The problem is we are oftentimes so close to capacity that if it gets to a point where new what I would call Woodbury County inmates are going to be in our jail, we then call the marshals to have them get their inmates out. And under the previous administrations, and I absolutely 100% agree, it never made sense that we would spend taxpayer dollars to house a Woodbury County inmate in Plymouth, Osceola, somewhere else, just so we could house a federal inmate here when the cost is the same. It was no benefit to us. And so that was frustrating for the marshals, and I understand that. And so that's why when I took over and I tried to start open those lines of communication, try to put some of that frustration on both sides behind us. I think we're working towards that, because obviously now, I think some of the first conversations I would have had with them were a year and a half ago, and we were assuring them at that time that we could comfortably give them 100 beds. The numbers jumped from 448 to 507 after the state appeal,
Inspector, yep.
Approved 507. So we're looking now where we could probably almost guarantee 150 beds to the feds. Whether they'll all be full all the time, that's what we got to figure out, and what kind of an agreement or guarantees will be made. We're not near having anything like that done yet, but certainly those communications even happened today. We're looking at hopefully having some meetings the second week in November to try and push that forward. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Item 13 from Board of Supervisors, approval to send letter to MERD informing them of our nomination of Keith Raddick as ex officio board member from Woodbury County. This was brought up a couple weeks ago and concerns, and here it is on the agenda. Any questions? I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving on to reports on committee meetings. You guys on the phone? Yeah, I didn't have any last week. Citizen concern, round 2. Board concerns. All right, seeing none, we're adjourned.